Hi, and welcome to Female Entrepreneurs Magazine, your go to platform for ambitious women who are ready to take the business world by storm. I'm your host, Angel France, and each week we'll dive into the latest strategies, stories, and success secrets from the most inspiring female entrepreneurs around the world. Today on The Real Female Entrepreneurs, we're diving into whole body wellness with a board certified family medicine physician. And you know what? She's also the founder of Intuitive MD. Don't you always want a physician who just is intuitive and can look and go, oh, this is what it is? I think she's the one that would do that in the United States here and probably abroad. She specializes in medical weight loss. All of us suffer a little bit with that, especially body image. You always want to lose weight, longevity, and stress resilience using cutting edge diagnostics, DNA based fitness, and biohacking to create lasting health transformation just for you. She's also an educator, speaker, and author, redefining healthcare with evidence based personality strategies. I am a personality freak. Everybody knows that. So get ready to unlock sustainable wellness and peak performance. Help me welcome the amazing Dr. Alexa Martin, MD. Welcome, Alexa. How are you?
I'm great. Glad to be here.
Good. I'm excited you're here. We had a minute to talk a few minutes ago. You are so intuitive and can see things that other doctors and people can't see. It just intrigues me. Do you mind talking about that gift that you have and how you actually move forward in your practice with that?
Yeah, so I think part of it is, of course, I've had the medical training, I've done residency. I was always curious about the human condition. And so that was my degree in human development at the University of Chicago. But there was always a little bit of that gut sense, that knowing that I had. And as a child, I was, teased about it by my siblings. They would say, if Alexa says it, it happens. My grandmother suspected that I had a little bit of an intuitive gift. And so when I was naming Intuitive MD, it wasn't just about me and, kind of my gut sense knowing with people. And I've always kind of had it. It was also about doctors generally have this. We're taught in residency that if we think it, do it. And so sometimes we'll have the occasion where somebody comes into the ER or they're admitted, and maybe that's not the reason why they come in, but you might just have a little nagging that says, get an x-ray or get this. That's that little gut part of you, that little X factor that I say that's part of medicine, and that's your intuition. And so that was the part that I wanted to lead the way for my practice this time around.
That is very intuitive of you because if I'm not mistaken, you also you're not practicing like a regular physician. And so I want to understand, most doctors go to that traditional route of being part of an organization and seeing patients in that way. You're not doing that. What led you to go out on your own to for Intuitive MD and become the entrepreneur business owner that you are?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I wouldn't, if someone had told me 2 years ago that I would have gone out on my own and done this in this very different way, I don't think I would have believed them, because I've always been the person, straight A student, followed kind of the trajectory that you're supposed to follow when you're a successful woman. And I did that. I was in corporate medicine, Medicare Advantage. And so I was the lead physician in, less than a year. I was a partner in less than 2 years. I was making my bonuses. I was hitting the metrics. My patients were getting good results, but I was feeling like there was something missing. And 22 to 24 patients a day, even when you have 15 or 20 minutes, it's just not enough time to really dive into some of those lifestyle questions people had. And so that was always that missing piece. was, somebody would say, "Hey, Dr. Martin, do you think my blood pressure issue is due to stress?" And I would say, "Yes." And I wasn't able to continue that conversation because I had 5 people waiting. And I was constantly being told that this was the best way to do it, that there was no other way of making health sustainable if we didn't see so many people for this short period of time. And I suspected that wasn't true. And I found that out when I created Intuitive MD, that if you see somebody for an hour and really dive into the things that make them who they are, things like sleep, lifestyle, what really energizes you, the impact you want to have, purpose, then once you get somebody to a place where they're empowered to their health, they're not seeing the doctor very often. And so my successful clients and patients, during this winter season where everybody's getting the flu and getting sick, they didn't get sick. And so they're not seeing the doctor because now they learn how their body is working. And so all of those things I was told about, this is the way that healthcare needs to be, it's not sustainable. And so I've been encouraging colleagues and newer doctors that there's a different way of doing it, one that you can feel satisfied in the work that you're doing and you can provide good care. And so that's how I went out on my own. And it was scary in the beginning, but I can't see myself doing it any other way and wouldn't go back.
So that leads me to being the physician that you are and seeing that many patients and now going out on your own. And I believe you were in residency during COVID. Is that correct?
I was, yes.
Oh, okay. So that was stressful all in itself. Seeing 20 to 40 patients a day is stressful all in itself. All right. So the question is now you become the entrepreneur, you're working independently, all right? You're still seeing a lot of patients. The question is, how do you balance that owning your own business, the career, and family life or personal life that you have?
I would say my short answer is probably badly. The longer answer is I think part of that is intentionality. And that's something that I've really been focusing on this year and the last couple of months with my clients and patients and with me as well. So I told you I'm writing an as yet untitled book. And so that's some of the things that I'm thinking about. How do you put some intentionality when designing or redesigning your life? And I think it's not just for entrepreneurs, but it's, good for us. But I think with anyone, whether or not you're beginning your career, you're in the middle of your career, you're starting a new business, I think the first part of it has to be you. How do you design a life that is going to give you that balance? And some of the things I thought about when I was going out on my own with my practice was, do I want to practice a traditional Monday, Friday, 9 to 5 practice? And if I didn't, then I had to do things a little bit differently. And I looked at some of the things that I really missed when I was practicing in a busy clinic. And some of those things were, I wanted to walk on a sunny day at 11 a.m. on a Wednesday. And I couldn't do that because I was in the midst of a busy clinic. And so I redefined my practice. My practice is usually by appointment only. There's never going to be a waiting room that somebody's sitting in. Your time is your time. I see you for an hour. And so that allows me to really schedule around the projects and the cases that I'm doing. If I'm consulting, it may mean that I might be out of town. And so I can schedule my time for that. And I think everyone needs to be really conscientious of what they want to do. What are those non-negotiables when you're creating or designing your life? And then make sure that your business is aligned with that. You're always going to be busy. There have been nights that I've stayed up until sunrise, working on, your website or working on social media. But then I know I can balance that out by saying, oh, I can take today off. I can sleep a little bit more. I can take a nap. And so that's about balancing, but that's also about knowing yourself and knowing the things that you're going to need to feel fulfilled as a person and an actualized person. Yeah.
So love the fact that we're looking at it from a perspective of what is your non-negotiables and then putting them in play and working around those aspects. I still struggle with that, to be honest with you. I still am that girl that goes, I gotta focus 100% and not think about the negotiables and think, okay, I should go do this now because it fits me in that time frame. So, and that's going to happen to everybody, don't you feel?
Oh, 100%. And so I think I'm much better at the teaching of this than the doing of it. And so that's why I said I probably am doing it badly, but I'm a work in progress. I think we're all, when you want to make sure that things are dynamic, right? That we're constantly changing. And part of one of the tips that I give people for sustainable change is be the curious observer of yourself. Meaning, if something doesn't go well, or if you didn't have a great day, what about that situation made it bad? What about that situation would have made it better? And for me, when I was busy sitting in a cubicle, the thing that would have made it better was for me to have the freedom to walk outside, even for 30 minutes. And I didn't have that. And so when I was designing my practice, when I was designing what my day to day would look like, it had to be something where it was flexible. It had to be something. And so that helped me prioritize certain things. So when I was looking at an EMR system and medical record system, or the way in which I contact my clients and patients, I wanted to make sure that I had something that was HIPAA compliant, meaning that would protect their privacy, but I could use it anywhere. So if I was sitting, on a beach somewhere, I haven't had that opportunity yet, but if I were sitting on a beach and I needed to reach out to a patient or client, I could do that. And I could do it in a protected way. And so once you know those little things about you, that can really inform how you move forward. How do you create those boundaries? And like I said, I'm a work in progress. I'm not great at it. I find that most people who are givers, people who really want to heal and have impact, we do have challenges with boundaries and not overgiving.
Yeah, that happens because I do it. So I totally get that. All right. What about a woman who is thinking, okay, so let's go back a minute. You've only been in business now. You just celebrated a year, correct? And you're very
Yes.
successful. All right. So what about a woman who is thinking, you know, I've been doing this for a while. I really want to move out on my own. What suggestions or advice do you have for them?
Oh, that's a great question. So, one of the things that I did, especially because a lot of the things that I was doing, especially my 90-day program, it was something I developed, right? And so it was a blueprint that had not existed before. And so once you kind of get out of the I'm thinking it through, I'm planning stage, you really need to execute. And so one of the things I did early on, like my anniversary was at the end of February, but I actually took my first client in January. And she was like my prototype patient or client. And so she came to me, she wanted to do a 90 days. She really liked my philosophy behind set point and weight loss. And I talked about, starting this business. And so she said, as soon as you start it, I want to be your first client. And because I was working out things like labs, right? When you go out on your own, you need a lab liaison. You are, getting all these things sort of structured and put together. And any business is going to be doing that. You want to have a structure for testing out whatever it is without affecting your reputation and bottom line. And by having one or two people who were trying out my 90-day, I didn't charge them anything. I was able to work out all of those little bugs. Like, oh, it's going to take this amount of time for this to happen. Or, I'm thinking about doing this. Does this work? And because she was so excited about working with me, I also got a great testimonial. And so I think there's something to be said about just do it. Do it imperfectly. Do it, sad, bad, tired, unsure, but do it. I'm such a perfectionist. If I didn't do it that way, I probably would have spent the last year still working at my, previous job trying to get it done. But by going out and saying, okay, I have this idea, I don't know if it's going to work. I started to talk about it. I was invited to do an open house and talk about whole body medicine. And I was like, I'm still figuring out what this whole body medicine thing is for me, but I did it. And so just start doing it. It's going to be imperfect. You're going to be remaking it. But because I did those things and because I was the one doing the marketing and the social media, that gave me the opportunity that when I'm able to hire other people, like now I have an director of operations, other people helping me, I know every single part of my business. And that allows us to keep that brand integrity because I was there in the beginning. But I would say just do it. Just do it. If you need the financial cushion, then maybe that's a gradual move into your business and maybe not letting that go till you know that you have that. You're never going to feel ready. You just have to start.
Just do it. That is your motto. Just do it. Okay. All right. Now, knowing what you've known now in your business, what would you go back and tell your 18-year-old self?
Ooh, so I'm a believer that the things that happen to us make us who we are. So I would tell my 18-year-old self that the things that she thinks are punishments are really gifts, and that these are going to make you a stronger, more compassionate physician. You are going to be a better entrepreneur. You are going to be more resilient because of things that have happened. I would also say that for her to believe the person that she thinks she is, to ignore some of those naysayers, because there's going to be plenty of people out there that are going to say yes. And I think sometimes at that age, we just want to please, we want to shrink in our light. And I did a lot of that early on. And I wish I could tell her, I don't want to take away the obstacles that I've experienced from 18 to now, because like I said, I believe they made me who I am. And if I had a smooth ride, I would not be the person that I am today. I would not be as good of a doctor as I am today. And I
What
had
doctor has had a smooth ride, first off?
exactly. And so I don't want to take those away from her, but I would want her to say that I would want her to know that this is all gifts and you're going to know this going forward. So to take those things, those obstacles, I always say we can't see the whole board. And so some of the things that we think are like the worst things that would possibly happen in our life, or a relationship that you thought you needed to have, or an opportunity that you thought, well, this is my only chance, that there's so many of those things. And when you look back, you're like, I'm exactly where I was supposed to be at that time, and learn the lessons. Chalk it up to research and development, R&D.
Now that is the first time I heard that, R&D. That everything in life, and we talked about that. I mean, I told you some crazy stuff that has happened to me, medically, that, oh my God, but the thing is that if I wouldn't have had that happen, who knows where I'd be today, you know?
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. So I don't like to think of them as mistakes. You are the CEO of your life. And so if you were running a company, you would chalk it up to research and development. That's what all the big companies do. They don't say, oh, they were not mistakes. We were researching something and now we know exactly what to do. And so same with you.
I love it. The failure is the R&D. Okay, that would be a really good book for you too. Um, all right. What is one key strategy that has helped you advance your career that maybe you didn't think was going to help?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think authenticity. I used to be very shy. I'm an introvert in general. And so I used to think the fact that, I would say little goofy things, or would, talk in a very sort of witty way, or I'd make up things like CEO of your life or agents of chaos. And I used to think, oh, that's so unpolished. Like your mom would be like, tisk, tisk, about that. And I really leaned into it because I've learned that, when I'm talking to somebody, they know as somebody who's a straight shooter, what they see is what they get. And so I think when you lean into who you are, when you have stronger boundaries, that is something that people can trust. And I used to think having boundaries made you selfish, or saying I could only do this between this time and this time. I was like, oh, these people are so unreasonable. And then I realized, like, no, that's actually being really honest. Nobody wants to work with somebody who's wishy-washy about things. And when you're wishy-washy about your boundaries, in some ways you're being dishonest. And that's where you end up having these conflicts with people, where it's like, man, I had to stay late and I needed to go somewhere. Well, you didn't set a boundary. And now you're upset about something that, somebody didn't know. We're not mind readers. And so I think for me, leaning into my authenticity, leaning really hard into boundaries, which I have the challenge with every single day, have really been something that people can then rely on you and trust you when you're authentic and when you have clear boundaries, because it also gives permission for everyone else around you to have clear boundaries. I think things just work better that way.
I find people have one or the other, but putting them together is like magic.
Yes, I think it can be. I think we're afraid of not being liked, and especially with women, right? As women, and I leaned into being the sweet daughter. My mom, I'm the oldest, my mom calls me her sweet daughter. And so I always wanted to be sweet. I did not want to be disliked. And it took me some time to realize that being clear with what you need, being clear with your boundaries, is not being somebody who's unlikable. If anything, I think people can sometimes sense that false sense of sweetness when you really have, some ideas about what exactly you want. And so I think merging those two, you feel better. You don't have to keep a false face. What you're getting is the same Dr. Martin and Alexa that my family and my friends get, and my patients and my clients get. This is who I am, right? And so those boundaries are to define what environment I'm in. So I may have different boundaries with my family. I may have different boundaries when I'm doing a podcast like this, and I may have different boundaries when I'm working with my clients and patients. But it gives us a structure for moving forward and how to connect with people.
Very good. What about future plans and goals? We know you're writing a book, but tell us a little bit more. What is insight that we need to keep our eye out for?
So I think that's the big thing. And again, I actually had a coach, Tim Story. I ended up being on a call with him, and he had mentioned something like, a writer's got to write. And I was like, I'm not a writer. I was like, he must have mistaken me for someone else. But I was coming up with all of these concepts for my clients and patients. And I was talking, I've done a lot of talks over the last year. I really like doing Ask Me Anything sessions. And somebody, more than one person, said, maybe you could take some of these concepts and create a book. And I thought that would be a really great way of making what I'm already doing accessible. So I came up with these 5 essential tips for sustainable change. And so the book is the big thing that I'm kind of doing, because this is the first time I've ever tried to distill my methodology. How do I actually help people make these transformations into a form that's understood by other people, a form that somebody else could take, and they don't necessarily have to work one-on-one with me. They could take these, tips and move forward. And the interesting thing about these tips, it's not that I've come up with, you got to walk every day or you got to eat these foods. These tips allow you to discover what works best for you, because there isn't a perfect diet. There's a perfect diet for you. There's a perfect lifestyle for you. There's a perfect movement for you. The way in which you may think of an ideal life may be completely different from me. And so it's a way in which you can learn about yourself. Where are you now? Where's your mindset for change? Start being the curious observer of yourself, building a toolbox, and investing in yourself. And all of those things are things that anyone can do to reach a goal. And that is the big thing I'm working on. As ever, we're continuing to do more exposure. So I have a couple of podcasts. We're probably going to do a retreat, like a Design Your Life retreat at the end of the year. So look out for that. And then continuing to refine some of our programs. I think that for now, the 90-day transformation is going to stay around, but I'm going to probably do some more things and visit some other cities so other people can take advantage of some of the things that I'm doing.
Well, if you want to come to New Orleans, just let me know. We got you. All
I
right.
love
What about a superpower for a day? What would it be? 24 hours. It's all we have.
Ooh, I know this one. So for me, I want the superpower of teleportation. But I have a caveat for it. And I've thought about this because I have a good friend and we always do these questions. And so, if you had a genie that asked you 3 wishes, what would be? And so one of mine was teleportation. I would want a teleportation bubble so that I could bring something with me, bring a little luggage, maybe bring a snack, that I could go to anywhere, space and time, and make sure my clothes are intact. I'm a little bit of a science geek, so I know sometimes teleportation does not always bring your things. So that's why my teleportation for the day would include a bubble so that my clothing and whatever's on me would come with me. And that way I could say, I want to be here. I've got one of my friends is in Istanbul. I haven't visited her and her boys in a while. I would love to just be like, take me to Istanbul or take me to Paris and be there. That would be my superpower for the day.
Is it in this timeline or another?
This timeline, but I would love the option. I mean, I think it's a little bit hard to do in 24 hours, but if I had it for longer, I would like the option of teleporting at any time and place. But for the day, I would be happy enough to teleport anywhere in this timeline.
Yeah, so I love time travel movies, so I'm like, okay, she's speaking my jam. All right. What's one fact about you that not a lot of people know about you?
Ooh. Okay, so one fact about me is I'm a classically trained soprano. So I spent the early part of my life learning the piano, and I was a singer. I was a cantor for my church. And so it's one of those things that most people don't know about me because I think nowadays the only time I ever come out to sing is if someone who already knows that I sing has invited me to do so. So I sang Ave Maria while one of my best friends in college walked down the aisle for her wedding. And so that's because she knew. And so I think of it as something that most people don't know about me. But I've sung at a couple of my friends' weddings and I've sung at funerals and I've sung on request. But usually, like I said, it's not something I talk about. But yes, I'm a classically trained soprano.
Wow. Okay, I'm soprano, but not classically trained, trust me. So that means, guys, she can really hit some high note. What level are you?
Ooh, I I don't want to say where I am now because I have not tested myself in a while. But I did mention Ave Maria, and that's a very easy song for me.
Kinda high,
So
though.
yeah.
It's easy for you, but it is pretty high. Yeah, it has high notes. All right. Do you have a favorite book or books?
I'm a bookworm, so that's like asking me to pick a favorite child. Um, I would say some of the books that have had the most profound impact on me, I really like the Malcolm Gladwell books. So, Tipping Point, he has a new one that I haven't started to read yet because I'm really disciplining myself not to read other people's books while I'm writing a book. I've loved things like The Once and Future King, Things Fall Apart,
Mhm.
um, Being Mortal. And so it's just like with my music, I don't just have one sort of genre. I like to be moved in a certain way, or if a fact really sticks with me. And that's why I mentioned Malcolm Gladwell to begin with, because I found that, like his 10,000-hour rule, or the sunk cost fallacy theory, all of those things I learned reading his books, and they stuck with me. And I'm really into what makes us who we are and the little components. So when I studied human development at University of Chicago, that's what we learned: child observation, psychology, anthropology, religion. What are the things that make us who we are? from birth order to our culture to what we value, what we think are taboo. And so, because I'm somebody who looks at everything and I love to look at the big pictures and masterminding your life, I'm very drawn to books that talk about why we make decisions the way we do and why we do things the way that we do.
Now, if people have never read that birth order book, that is a really good book.
It is.
That is an amazing book because it actually says, so you were born here, this in the family, and oh my God, you're a firstborn boy, you're a firstborn girl. You got to understand the dynamics, huh?
Exactly. And if anyone couldn't guess, I'm a firstborn.
If anybody couldn't guess, I'm a firstborn. All right. Song. So you just already told us you love songs, you love music. So what are some of those songs that get you moving and grooving that you totally love?
Yeah, so same thing. And I actually use music therapy in my in-person sessions. So when I do energy work the last 15 minutes, I actually use music. One music that really has touched me or I intuitively feel is inspirational, but also I use frequencies. So I change the frequency on the music depending on what we need. And so when I think to some of the music I use there, a lot of it is going to be instrumental or classical music, things like Thais, meditation. It's a beautiful violin solo if you've ever seen Thais. Um, you say, songs that are going to be inspirational about who you really are. So that's one that on a bad day, I want to listen to you say. Lauren Dag, like I love her music for that reason, because I think there's some days where we're so hard on ourselves. And I think it's nice to remind us, even if we can't see it, that you're showing up exactly as who you need to show up as. Sia, Unstoppable. I think I mentioned Unstoppable as my go-to. I need a good like dance song to get me moving. I am known to do a dance party, and my siblings know that. My nieces and nephews know that. Like, if I'm going to be around, we got to dance. I think it's the easiest way of changing your perspective. It's the easiest way of changing attitude for the day. And so when I've had a hard day, I'm putting on music. And if it's music I need to cry to, or if it's music I need to dance to, but music is going on.
So there's a button. It's called the dance party, and you hit it, and it puts like psychedelic, different kind of jam music on. It's just a beat, and then you can hit it again, and it does a different beat. So it's a really cool. I have one somewhere. I
Oh,
might
I've
have to
never
bring it
heard
out
of
one
dance.
day. Yeah,
That's cool. I'm gonna look that up after this.
I
I
think I
think
got
it's
mine on
something new.
eBay. Really cute. It's a button. Boop. So, all right. So, a favorite quote.
So this quote, I have a couple of favorite quotes, but I think the one that I go to time and time again, especially when you're starting a business and you can have some rocky days, up and down days, is, and I may quote it badly, it's from Vanilla Sky, and it's every minute is another opportunity to turn it all around. And I really love that quote because it really tells us that if you have breath, that you can turn it around. It's not a forever stance. I think one of the other quotes that I kind of go to is this too shall pass. And I
Mm.
think that's in the same vein, that whether or not you're living the best life that you think you can, or if you're at the lowest of your low, that this is a dynamic life. We're going to have up and downs, but they're not going to last. And that you've survived 100% of your bad days and you survive 100% of your good days. And so I like that, this idea that every day is another opportunity and that we get to choose.
So, Dr. Alexa, can I call you Dr. Alexa or do you want Dr. Martin? Which one's
You
better?
can call me Dr. Alexa.
I like Dr. Alexa. All right. So, what is the best way for our audience to stay connected with you?
Oh, well, I love hearing from people. And so there's a couple of ways. If you go to my link tree, so linktree/intuitivemd, you will find all of my handles. You can reach me on Instagram, LinkedIn. You can email me if you want to keep in touch. I also offer a complimentary 15-minute consult. So in my past physician life, I only have 15 minutes with my patients. Now I give that away to anyone who wants to jump on my schedule, because now I do an hour with people. And so I don't keep come in, ask me anything, health questions, life questions. If you just need a direction, jump on my schedule.
Wow. Jump on her schedule. She loves hearing from you. All right. Is there anything else you want to discuss with our audience today that we haven't talked about yet?
Yeah, I think if anyone is feeling like they need that extra motivation, on that same link tree, I do a weekly newsletter where I give all these tips about consistency and growth mindset. And then I have a daily Substack that anything that I'm working on, I'm going to have a daily article there. And so that's a good way of just getting started if you're not really sure what you need to do. But I'm very goal oriented. So the book that's coming out is going to be about sustainable goals. And so this is an easy way of jumping in if you're not ready to talk with me, if you're not ready to work with me, or a doctor like me, or a performance coach like me.
Wow. All right. Well, Dr. Alexa, thank you for being on. You are truly a blessing.
Oh, thank you. This was great. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, a lot of fun. Thank you for being with us.
All right. Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Female Entrepreneurs Magazine. I hope you found inspiration, actionable tips, and a sense of connection with our incredible community of driven women. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, leave a review, and share the episode with fellow entrepreneurs who are ready to elevate their game. Remember, your success is just the beginning, and we're here to support you in every step of the way. Until next time, keep shining, keep thriving, and remember, you have the power to create the business and life of your dreams. Stay inspired, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.